Thank you.
Why the judge lead it?
No, that's the judge's call. The defense have agreed to I'll be back.
There's a lot of information for the judge to go through, and I think the prosecutor's case today is pretty clear. He's got 2 points. 1, bad things happened in Flint. 2, Director Lyon is a bad person, so we should hold him responsible. The first is absolutely true, the second is not. And the bottom line is there is nothing in this record that would allow this case to be bound over. So we look forward to a detailed opinion on the 20th August.
Mr. Burse, this is probably a small win for your side. You did give them a lot of information to consider. The fact that the judge is shaking and taking it back to chambers, I mean, is that a good sign for your case?
Oh, it's a great sign, because what the popular belief was before this started is that this was a slam dunk for the prosecutor. But I think we've shown in our first closing argument, our closing brief, and now this argument, that they don't have a leg to stand on. What you heard today was a lot of mudslinging about Director Lyon, and you never heard, even one time, these are the elements I have to prove, and these are how I have to prove them. That's how a real prosecution should work. If you can't do that, you don't get bound over.
What message do you think this sends to the other cases, the other defendants?
I'm not involved in the other cases at all, so I can't speak to their cases or their evidence.
What was new today that the judge already was not aware of before? Because, I mean, what you all discussed is stuff that you've been talking about or has been talked about for months.
There is a lot that's been talked about before. One thing that he asked us to focus on specifically was the gross negligence aspect of the manslaughter charges. And so, at least in my presentation, I talked about that in a much more detailed, evidence-based way than we did even in the brief that we submitted. Obviously the prosecutor said that he would talk about gross negligence, but then he didn't talk about the elements. He didn't talk about knowledge. He didn't talk about causation. He didn't talk about ordinary care. So I suspect that that's going to have a role in the decision that he reaches.
So basically, you think that's the judge's pivotal role?
It's certainly the one thing he expressed some interest in. So obviously, we're interested too.
Did the judge also want to get beyond the primary election?
I have no idea. I don't think that's the case.
Did the state prosecutor want to get beyond the primary election?
You'll have to ask him. You'll have to. I don't know what his perspective is on that either. All we want is the right opinion, and however much time the judge needs to do that, we're willing to wait.
What about the fact that PBS Frontline did a report yesterday that it's in fact closer to 120 people who have possibly died from Legionnaire's disease?
There are numerous inaccuracies in the Frontline article that we have already communicated to them. Chief among them, that none of the medical professionals in the community knew that there was a Legionnaire's outbreak. If you've been attending these proceedings, you know that that is categorically false, that the entire Genesee County medical community was well aware of the Legionnaire's outbreak. That's one of many inaccuracies in the article. We'll be addressing those with Frontline directly.
Talk about the reasoning behind posting the family photo up there for the judge.
I just wanted to personalize this for him because it's so easy for the prosecutor to put Director Lyon up as the boogeyman who hurt all these people. And he needs to understand that if he doesn't follow the law and satisfy the burden of proof with respect to every element of every charge, then he's taking a good man, a family man, and exposing him and his family to a trial that could result in 15 years in prison. That is not how the justice system is supposed to work in this state.
John, you and Steve got into it a little bit with the apologize. I mean, do you think, was it a substantive issue that you were raising with him, or style?
It's just frustrating to me to hear over and over again things that are unsupported by the record. We have been fastidious in giving the court every single transcript page cite, every single exhibit to support everything we say. And the prosecutor has this tendency to just throw stuff out there and see if it sticks. So when he continued to do that and then accused us of somehow trying to mislead the court, that was very frustrating.
What about
I did apologize.
What about the family members of the people who have died? What about them? Who's going to stand up for them? What's going to happen here? Who's going to be held accountable?
Sympathy for them. And there are folks who I'm sure will be held accountable for this. But it would not do justice for those families to hold someone accountable who is not accountable because he was at the head of this large organization and was supervising other folks who were doing the best that they could to do their jobs. The fact that the judge would conclude that Director Lyon should not be bound over does not in any way diminish the terrible pain and loss that not only the Skidmore and Snyder families have suffered, but every family in the city of Flint. Justice has to be done, but justice has to be done with the right people and in the correct way, and that's all we're asking for.
Thanks, Mr. Burge. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
You bet.